We're here with the 9th episode of That Time I Got Reincarnated in the same world as an anime podcaster. I'm your host, Isekai Sensei Sama, aka Brad. And as always, I'm joined in the Weeb Cabal by Kermit D. Grog, aka Andrew.
Hello, Kermit D. Grog reporting from the Sound Cube, getting stronger every recording.
And Bento Baggins, aka Ben.
Yasashibori.
To all our loyal listeners, thanks for coming back. But if you haven't listened before, we've been watching anime and having conversations about anime and manga and the meta for a long time. So we decided to have those discussions in podcast format. Before we dive in, a few quick news items. Frieren Beyond Journey's End Volume 5 is out. So go buy it right now.
It's so good.
Do it.
Do it.
Chainsaw Man manga is back.
Woo!
We're 2 chapters in.
We're really
to the
excited
next
for
part.
the anime also.
Yeah.
But that's not
We gotta wait a couple
related to
months
this.
for that.
Yeah. A couple months still.
As of recording, we're two chapters into the next part, and it's still excellent. So,
It's still Chainsaw Man.
and be sure to check out our new series, Heroin Addiction. Ben and I review shoujo and josei manhwa, and we're having fun with that. Ben is totally addicted already.
I'm addicted to the one. We'll see if the next one can drag me in.
I think you're addicted to the idea because as
do
soon
like
as
the
we
idea.
recorded the first one, you immediately started reading the
You
second
kept
one.
reading, and I'm like,
read
oh
straight
no.
through it in a week.
It's going to come to me next.
There's maybe it's good, you know. I'm on the fence. Maybe it's all right.
He is not on the fence, people. It's lies and not slander, but falsehoods, fakitudes.
So as always, hit us up on social media and let us know what you think about all those different series and the podcast in general. We badly need validation and attention.
Yeah.
You're just going to come out and boldly say it?
So guys, I'm studying to take the level 3 podcaster exam so we can get listed on the big name podcast lists. If I pass, I'm going to start studying for the level 2 certification right away. But in order for us to have a level 2 podcast, you guys have to be at least level 3. So I'm going to need you guys to start studying right away. The exams are hard, but you know, it's important to have the certification so people know the podcast that they're listening to is of a certain quality. So, as you might have guessed, our topic today is Japan's obsession with hierarchies. So now, I'm going to sit back and let Ben rant for 20 minutes.
Well, I think there's two sides to this debate here. I'm very anti-strict hierarchy, and Kermit is very pro-strict hierarchy.
I don't know if I'd say, well, okay. I don't know
In
if I'd
anime.
say in anime. I am a sucker for having distinct things that you move through. That idea of like, it's anytime, I mean, I could even do it bigger of like anytime numbers involved. Oh, there's 10 assassins that are coming for you that you need to go through to get to the top. Oh, you're at rank E and you have to make your way up to rank A. And just being able to feel that like power gradient, I think is exciting. I feel like when you're charting power, it's fun, but when it's 100% bureaucracy, I join your camp, Ben.
I think there's a big difference between these people are ranked based on their ability versus these people are ranked because they took a test.
There's just and for me this goes beyond anime. This goes into like just the sheer obsession with seniority
It bleeds in
in
from
Japanese culture.
the culture.
And the one that jumps to my mind right away that I think is silly and is probably a real thing is Akane Banashi and the ranking to be able to perform in certain venues. Like, I can't imagine a stand-up comedian having to achieve the Chunin rank to be able to perform in a club larger than 50 seats. And when her dad doesn't pass the exam, oh, I guess I just can't do comedy anymore.
I can't do it anymore.
I don't have the blessing of the elders.
So I will say...
I don't have the little badge that says I can do it.
We did talk about this a little bit when we talked about Akane Banashi.
But if you don't remember that or weren't there for that,
go back and listen.
Yeah.
The way that comedy works in America is you do sort of have ranks with an opener and a middle act and a headliner. However, there's not like a test you take.
there's no
just
certification.
like,
There's no school. There's
Right.
no concrete levels that
Yeah.
you literally have to get a piece of paper that says, I can do this. You just
Right.
start doing it, and as you accrue ability and popularity, you work your way up the
Right.
ranks.
And
It's
so-
it's a naturally occurring gradient
Right.
of progress
To be
instead
a
of steps.
to be an opening act, you have to be good enough that a headliner who's doing a tour or whatever goes, "Hey, I like that guy. I'm going to make him my opener." Or to be a middle act, you have to be good enough or friends with a headliner, so that person says, "I'm going to take you on the road with me. You're going to be my middle act." But there is, in certain comedy clubs, and most specifically the Comedy Store in LA, where they do have, you sort of have to take a test and get passed
What does
to
that
be
mean?
a paid regular.
Well, but that's kind of more of an audition.
That's a
Right.
job interview.
Like,
right.
what I'm talking about is not necessarily the free market of being able to sell out a crowd, or even an owner asking you to prove yourself before they put you on in a valuable time slot. What I'm talking about is some old guy who has seniority, who is just obeyed without question
Yeah.
by everybody beneath him. And that's like, I've heard that's a big problem in Japanese companies. They promote, like, they go entirely based on seniority, not ability. And that leads to a lot of dead weight at the top. And I'm sure this would be blasphemy if I were saying it in Japan. Like, I think this is actually a controversial opinion.
But Ben, they've been in the industry so long, they obviously must know what they're doing.
I don't even think anybody pretends that's the case. I just think it's a respect for, like, services rendered, I guess.
Like, you did your time.
Yeah, you did your time. This is your reward. And I will do my time and I will get the reward. So I should not complain about you doing yours.
Well, you see, we can't stop that system, or the people in the middle will get screwed. Because they've been putting in that time already, right? They got to
Yeah.
get their payout.
I guess. But it gets increasingly weird when, okay, so I guess comedy's fairly low stakes. But let's say we're like, I don't know, kaiju number 8. We're hunting kaiju or whatever. And you got to pass the kaiju exam to prove you can beat up a kaiju. And then
Meanwhile, I'm like, you want to go fight a giant monster and potentially die? You just go ahead. Like, I don't care if you have the ability.
like progressive fantasy needs
Steps.
Yeah, it needs goalposts. It needs some sense of progression. I just think sometimes Japan falls back on the S through F rank tier list.
One Punch Man is a one that definitely comes to mind, where literally it's just you take a series of tests, both physical and written, and then you get ranked on that. And like, what isn't Saitama the One Punch
C
Man?
rank.
Isn't he C? He's like
Yeah.
the top of C
I
rank.
mean, perhaps that's the best example there is, because they're giving these tests based on lots of different criteria, and Saitama's basically only good criteria is that he's absolutely the strongest ever. He doesn't have a commanding presence. He's not intelligent. He can't deal with people in a situation.
He'd be ranked king number 1 if it was only based on all power. Listen to our episode. You're just good all callbacks. Listen to our episode when we talked about ranking of kings.
But the number 1 ranked guy
Yeah, all
is
ranking
just there
number.
for taking credit for Saitama's work.
Well, no, Blast actually doesn't show up for quite a while. He's rank 1. King is rank 2.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know
And
he was
King
2.
Is the most powerful hero there is. So you should keep those words in your
Brad's
mouth.
making a face because if you can't read the joke, if you've never gotten further in One Punch Man than season 1, but the whole gag is that King has no powers and he's in fact a coward. But there's a couple times where he like glared at somebody when he was too nervous to talk to them and they went away or something. It's been a hot minute, but basically he is not an A rank hero.
So
he's barely a hero at all.
I think he actually does have a superpower, which is luck. I think he's like a domino, where it's like everything just works out for him no matter what he does.
That's a very like game theory, like the YouTube channel kind of theory.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There's something, and I don't think I'd do well in Japan. When I was a kid, I was a huge weeb, and I used to think like, oh man, I'm so unlucky to be born here where nobody's a nerd. I should be born in Japan where everybody's into comics and video games.
No.
Turns out you just had to wait
Yeah.
a while.
And it turns out the
Came
more
to you.
well,
Unescapably.
the more I learn about Japanese culture and what it's actually like to live in Japan and the politics and the, socioeconomic expectations, I would not do well there.
Yeah.
No.
I
I
would
hate
not
taking tests.
I would not defer to my senpai on every decision simply because they are my senpai. I do not want to have to use like the most polite tones. And of course I would if I traveled there because it is the culture and I would conform to it as a guest. But I'm glad I don't have to live there.
Yeah. So there's something I find funny about thinking about this topic because something popped in my head. There's a manga I'm reading that's about two people at a company that are hiding their relationship because you're not supposed to do that, inter-company relationships. And the one guy is in the accounting department and the girl is in like the test kitchen chocolate making place. It's like a candy company, right? And so in this one last couple chapters, the guy has to take a test to get his level 2 accounting certification or something like that. And I was reading that and I thought about Ben and I was like, oh, there's stupid hierarchies and everything. And then I went, wait a minute. No, we have that here.
Yeah, we do have that here.
My dad is an accountant and he has to take a CPA certification. I forget how often, but he has to do it at least every couple years in order to keep his CPA license. Now, I don't think we have levels in the same way.
I don't think it's like cooked into our psyche in the way that, like I said, like that was what I said at the top, is like it is so ingrained over there that it uncontrollably leaks into the media they make in some ways.
For me, I draw the line between like if you're a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer or some profession where you have very important aspects of people's lives in your hands, a certification is nice to know that somebody who knows what they're doing has looked at your work and verified that, yes, you do know what you're talking about. At least there's one. But if you look at like the My Hero Academia or the One Punch Man, the idea that like heroism can be ranked, that like it's not popularity. I don't recall. Well, it is popularity, but first they've got to get their hero license, and then they've got to do their hero internship,
and you got to get your internship. Yeah, it's like driving a car. You got to get your learner's permit
and
first.
It's cute. My hero doesn't go overboard with it, but it is an eye rolling moment where like Deku seriously considers maybe not acting because he doesn't have his license yet or something. Like
I think they get down. There's like one where it's like, hey, you guys solved a big problem, but you guys weren't licensed to do this, so this is like a secret bop on the wrist.
Well, Vigilantes is all about that.
Yeah, Vigilantes is literally about a man who does good that he has to leave Japan.
Go listen to our episode about Vigilantes.
He heroed without his hero license because he's just a guy, and he had to go to America, where I guess that's not a big deal.
Well,
the land of the vigilante.
Nor should it be.
The vigilante with a D.
This is a rare moment of American patriotism for me, where I'm like,
fire up.
Look, it is directly at odds with the idea of heroism that you can... There's something like so weirdly consumerist about all this ranking. Because like I said, with like a CPA, an accountant, it makes sense. With a doctor, it makes sense.
Yeah, but what
I think licensing and or a certification makes sense. But the idea that you're going to have like 3 or 4 different levels and like only the person at a certain level can do this certain job because
and just the idea that like a person using their own like biological abilities, not hurting anyone, just potentially just for fun. Like if I had wings or something and I wanted to fly, I've got to get my hero license to do that. And that's ridiculous. I would not listen to that for a second. No one in America would listen to that for a second.
Are we doing the Civil War conversation? I wanted to turn this back to be a little bit lighter, but if this is where we're headed, if we're getting into a Cap Iron Man situation between the two of us, Ben, I will be there.
Maybe.
See, here's the thing, because I'm totally on the side of the government needs to regulate superheroes. But I'm against the idea that we have to have some kind of like level system and like stuff like, because
it's not like we don't have like different rankings of like driver's license. I mean, I guess heavier vehicles, but but to like a normal driver.
But that's more like a separate license.
I would say it's more like you're not supposed to run in most places, but we do not license people to run. We just trust that
Right.
if you do something you're not supposed to, if you run where you're not supposed to run, somebody will check you on that.
Although your example of flying is actually pretty bad, because if you were able to fly, you would probably have to get that cleared with the FAA.
If I want to fly at a certain height, but I can jump 3 feet in the air and not get cleared by the FAA. I don't know.
In most places.
Well, and the guy in Vigilantes can just like scoot around. He's got all the powers of like a motorized scooter.
They make a point that he is below eye level and will bump into people who aren't, if neither party is really paying attention. And that's a very low level version of what I understand. It's like, what if you could do that, but what if he was way faster? What if he broke somebody's leg while he was scooting around? And it's like that line of thinking that, he could still do that if he was licensed, but at least there was some extra level of like,
At least he'd be insured.
yeah, actually, yeah,
Potentially.
he's definitely not insured. I don't know Japan's insurance or fantasy Japan's insurance situation, but like that dude is barely making ends meet, living in a little thing at the top of a building.
Those
Man's
people
not
in the
insured.
business course of the Hero Academy have to be doing something.
Right. I feel like in America, the way that would work is like we already have laws that you shouldn't hurt other people. So like if he was scooting around and he hurt somebody else, he'd get in trouble because he hurt them, but they wouldn't like be like, you're not allowed to scoot around anymore. It would be like,
Wouldn't they?
Hey, I need to try harder to not hurt people when I'm scooting around.
I'm not going to make this the gun control debate.
When you drive around in your car, if you hit somebody, you get in trouble for hitting them.
Yeah, and you lose your license,
Well,
don't you?
sometimes. But the same thing. Eventually, you get it back. But
Yeah, eventually he'd work off whatever his sentence was, quote unquote.
here's a better example. If you're walking down the street in a city and you run into somebody and they get hurt, you will get in trouble. You might get arrested for battery or whatever.
Or you're being conned.
But you aren't then not able to walk anymore.
Yeah, well, this is getting dangerously close to
it's
just
like
having a
Ben
gun
was
control
saying.
episode, and that is not what this podcast is about.
Well, it's like what Ben was saying is that you are like that is the function of your body.
Well, and I'm thinking of like in X-Men 1, we can talk about another
movie?
movie about heroes. Yes.
Okay.
In X-Men 1, there's a line that says they're trying to create a mutant registry, which would force every mutant to come forward and identify themselves and their power, and then they would get their license or whatever. And she says the wrong person behind a wheel of a car could be dangerous, and he's like, "We license people to drive, yes, but not to live." And that's what I feel like. Can you imagine if in America they came and they said, "Okay, everybody, I need your name, your physical abilities. I need you to register all of that with the federal government right now." There'd be libertarian protests across the heartland.
But we don't live in a
This
fantasy
is-
world.
this is too
This
much.
was supposed to, okay, let me get it back to, let's get a little bit more, let's take this back to storytelling. Why I think it works in storytelling, because before you were like, oh, if you're like a CPA and ranked or whatever, it's like, if you come into a business as a new accountant and you have to interact with the 5th best accountant of all the accountants at this place, this is the 5th strongest, best accountant in all of the land, and you go, man, this accountant's really incredible at their job and powerful. I wonder, it builds anticipation when you're going to meet 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. Like, that is why I like ranking systems, because it builds anticipation and builds you steps to move up.
However,
in storytelling,
In real Japan, as we've
I'm trying to go to
established,
storytelling,
the
Brad.
person at the top would be completely incompetent and unable to do
But
anything.
that's why this is a story. Like, that's
Well-
to me what makes it exciting, when it's like, this is the 3rd strongest guy in the clan, and he's only the 3rd strongest. It's like I remember, it's a gag show, but like watching Bobobo, and it's like you're working your way. They're working their way. There's like different like blocks of soldiers that they go through the alphabet, and then at the end, it's like, oh, the strongest was actually Z block at the end, and then there's like the old, like they have to like get the last generation out from like cryo freeze, and then it's like working your way from like, okay, we fought the commander of F block. And then, like, seeing the guy from A block in the future, and you go, well, this fight was hard, but that guy's A block. He's the top for a reason. And it builds, at least for me, it builds this very clear, ordered anticipation for a more intense altercation, or like something, it's going to be more. I'm being promised, by the structure of what it is, I'm being promised more down the line.
I think if it was just in storytelling, you could give that a pass, because it is a good way to, like you said, you build the anticipation, You can set something up for like a clear goal. It can work well in a story. If it wasn't such an ingrained part of society, because I feel like, the whole world was set up that way at one point. You've got kings and queens and the nobility and like the aristocracy, and then you got the commoners, and then the peasants and serfs, and however that works. But like the rest of the world, for the most part, except in a few places like Japan, left that all behind. Even places that still have like a king and a queen, it's like, okay, yeah, you're supposed to show reverence and everything, but like nobody's going to get in trouble if they're like, yo, what's up, king?
Well, I want to be clear. I don't think it's a bad thing to respect one's elders. I do think some level of hierarchy is appropriate, but I would actually push back and say, like, not that it's a bad storytelling device, because I'm sure we could both agree that there are times where it has been very effective and very good at suspense building, but we can probably also agree there are times when it has been extremely lazy and telling and not showing, because the author doesn't really care to think about an interesting way to establish that a powerful person is powerful, or an interesting way to establish that a milestone has been hit.
I think I'm just a baby that I like, especially, I don't know if I have this in any other medium, that just in anime and manga, I just love being told, yo, this guy coming up, he's the real, like, there's just, I don't know why, I just love having that and just setting it up. And it's like, it's kind of wrestling in its purest form. It's like, okay, this guy beat up all these guys, now you got to fight him.
But I would want to see him beat them up, or hear somebody talk about.
But
having
you could do that, but then you put it over. Like, it's the extra. You got to see it, and then you get that extra little zest of like, this guy's he was the number one fighter at his school before he came over here, and you do the shot of that. But if it's just him fighting everybody, and then you get told there's just something about the freaking number one. What is it? Ichiban, number one.
Ichiban. Yeah.
Ichiban.
Psycho.
When you hear that, and it's like, oh man, he was the top. He was the big fish in this situation.
But typically in real life, and I think in most storytelling, you're impressed because someone whose opinion you respect is impressed. Not because
in this case,
the governing board issued the S rank.
This isn't a government board necessarily. This is the reality that gave them the moniker of number one. This is more than just a trusted official. This is the universe. They have been declared. It's the same.
Unless it's a sports manga, I find it a little not like game breaking. This wouldn't ruin a manga for me, but I find it a little silly sometimes when the goal is to get to rank 2. When that seems like a very... I mean, it's fine if life is defined in a competition like that, but when you're talking about Midoriya, he didn't need anyone's permission to be a hero. I just keep going back to that.
And maybe part of that story is them...
because he thinks
breaking that system a little bit. I feel like that was a different related story we were saying earlier. It's like Vigilantes is kind of a story about where the system fails in that regard.
And I
think that's interesting.
I respect Vigilantes for that. But like what I see often in things like My Hero, where the theme really wants to be, true heroes don't wait for permission. True heroes just act when they see somebody in need. And Midoriya always has these moments of stress where it's like, oh, if I don't pass this exam, then I can't be a hero. And it's like, we never see him not pass the exam and still be a hero.
So there's no stakes the stakes go nowhere in this case. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is it means that the author isn't interested in examining that part of it. He imagines that there would be a rigid hierarchy, and it's almost like an endorsement of it, in that Midoriya does have to get that to be a hero. He, like a good hero, would follow the rules.
Can you think of any series that do explore that? I mean, Vigilantes might be that.
Vigilantes is probably...
And that's written by a different person, right?
In that context, I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so that could very well be that is the...
We didn't say that before.
That other author was like, hey, you're not addressing this, and I think it should be addressed.
And I don't think, I mean, this is its own little topic in itself. I don't think just because they're in a school system I don't think everything that's writing about something needs to address everything that it brings up.
No.
And obviously that's silly.
I really like My Hero.
And,
but I think it is interesting to explore those things. Sorry.
as another example, Akane Banashi, like they're not questioning the ranking thing at all,
because it's been around
like,
forever.
She's like, I'm going into this system and I'm gonna like work my way to the top.
I'm going to prove you wrong because it's important to prove you wrong,
Right.
because you're an elder whose opinion I need to change your mind.
And that doesn't. That's
Not
not
you don't
The
matter.
system broke my dad, so I will go through the system.
Right.
I have to fix the
The
system.
thing is, I don't think that's detrimental to the story. Akane Banashi is excellent, but it is an interesting thing to think about that they're not examining why this is a problem in the first place.
No, and I think they
Although it's still early.
it could be a cultural blind spot where they really do just think like that's the moral way to do it. Like if he did not get the approval of his seniors, he should stop. He would cross the line into being a morally bad person if he continued to try to perform Rakugo underground. Whereas in America, I think we would celebrate that. We like a rebel.
We like a rebel. We like an underdog. We like somebody sticking it to the man to do their art.
Unfortunately, I don't think we have any Japanese listeners, so they're not going to get this message.
Well,
If they're listening to this, they're good. I'm sure.
Like
they're
I
fine.
said, I'm not trying to change Japan, and if I'd been raised in Japan, maybe I would not think it's such a big deal, but that would annoy me to no end. If some old guy who I didn't even like or talk to that much all of a sudden told me my my programming was crap, I'm not just going to quit my entire career. I'm just, and that has happened many times. That's the other thing in my life. Do you know how many times somebody?
But the guy who said your programming was crap was not your university professor that gave you the degree that allowed you to get those jobs for those people to tell you that you were crap.
Yeah, but I've had plenty of professors that didn't like me and stuff like that.
True.
It wouldn't stop me, and I think it shouldn't have stopped him. And that bothers me about Akane Banashi, and obviously it bothers Akane, and I like Akane's journey, but
And I think in that case, especially because everybody was like, why did he do that? It wasn't like, oh, obviously he's not good enough. It was a surprise to everyone. This doesn't make any sense. But you still have to listen. You can't go to a different school.
not
or
one person encourages him to keep going.
Right.
No, it's
And
just
that's
it's
what
over.
I have a
Well,
problem
his
with.
wife probably did. But.
Well, but like his teacher who believed in him and took him all this way, this guy says no, and you're like, oh, well, you're dead to me.
Right.
I didn't want you to be dead to me, but that old guy spoke, so all my human emotions are overridden.
Yeah.
I think we set this up at the top that we're kind of at opposite ends of it in media. It's just like I will just take heed of just okay, here's the situation being presented to me. I will accept it as this is the situation, unless they want to poke at it. Like your viewpoint is valid. My brain is just like it loves the structure. It loves those things and a hierarchy to work up and concrete, goals and whatnot. And
When they bake it into the story, like when there's a reasoning, when they explain the reasoning behind the ranking and the logic behind the tests, I think it means a lot more. And I think it gets you more immersed in the world if they can explain how this system came into existence and why it persists. I think it is a good storytelling device that shouldn't be just thrown out. But like with isekai, I think sometimes it's just a shortcut to get to the fighty bits.
We're not at that section.
Or the part I want to.
I'm
I'm not trying to segue into it, but I'm just saying, like, if I tell you somebody's
Yeah.
S rank, I just told you they're the best.
Well, with this whole like school and ranking system, like it's a storytelling thing to get a bunch of strong people together all at once. I was thinking like with that, like My Hero, Naruto, what we've seen at least at the beginning part of like Hunter x Hunter, where it's just like here is a reason you have to get your hunter's license. Here's a reason to get a bunch of powerful people around to have situations with.
Naruto.
Like JoJo doesn't really have that. There is little to no hierarchy in JoJo
that's
things,
true.
and they kind of.
No-
It's got its own flavor to it, but there's never a moment where like, oh my gosh, there's a big stand fighting tournament. Like that never happens. They just kind of there's the kind of built-in universe of it that they bump into each other, but there's no like this is the number one stand user. It's like they build an end boss, but that's that's any
Dio.
storytelling.
I think Naruto is an interesting example because you brought that up, and they do have that hierarchy that you have to take tests for, but because that structure is more militaristic,
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes more sense.
Yeah, I think
Because
it's
you have to get
world
those
building.
rankings to do particular missions of a particular level.
Right.
Except those are bunk because the first one they go on is way too high level for them, but they do it anyways because it's an anime.
Well, they didn't know it was too high level. They got
That's
lied
what I'm
to.
saying.
Well, and even My Hero, I think, puts it in like when they have to get their licensing test. There's multiple layers to the test, and it's not just about fighting. They have to rescue people. They have to make sure they're well taken care of, and they have to use some soft skills that maybe aren't emphasized in their course. And I think that's a good thing to make sure all heroes have. And I think that helps build out the world. I would maybe point to an example where I think it's done poorly in, again, mostly isekais, is maybe this will come up later in the episode. I've been watching Konosuba at the insistence of the group. And
Yes.
in Konosuba, they put their thumb on a thing and get told numerically how good they are. Or whatever. I forget how the test went. I already forget. But
That's not important.
somebody just punches a ticket and tells them like, yep, you have a stat score of 45, and that means you can be anything in this world you want to be. You have a 12. Storytelling.
I think we come back to my love of progressive fantasy. It's just like if I could have a number that I could see go up, that I'm jogging every morning, besides my like mile time going down, that I could like actively level it up and that would stick with me. Like I've got video game, goo brain. Like I'd be about that. I think that's also why I like the structure of those clear steps is that I can make clear steps at getting better at something, and instead of this sort of like wishy-washy in life thing of like, yeah, I've been working at this and like I'm better, but not in a way that I could literally hold in my hand of here is a thing, here's a physical object that says I have this level of aptitude in it that I worked for this. And my brain likes that a lot, I guess, and that extends to storytelling.
But I think in storytelling, if you use the example of running, a good way to show running progression might be like the Rocky montage, where Rocky runs up the stairs and he's dead. And he runs up the stairs the next day and he's doing a little better. And then by the end of the montage, he's running with a whole crowd behind him and he's doing like his little dance at the top of the stairs. He could go another mile. You've seen Rocky improve at running. It would be less emotionally impactful if Rocky went for the same animation and then at the end you saw a number and then a bigger number and then a bigger number, which is what I feel like happens some of the time. Not in everything.
Yeah.
True.
I feel like there's two sides to this, because there's the one side that Andrew's alluding to with your power progression. And I think, maybe the accountant levels is sort of like this, where it's like, okay, I'm studying hard. I'm going to get this certification. That's going to show that like I've reached this level and I have this power. And then there's the other side, which is this guy's really old, so he gets to be this level.
It's more just like when I'm watching a character go through something, I just want the author to make the case of what this means to the character and not just rely on the shorthand of, I know you play video games. Rather than like figuring out a way to make this a human story.
It's the Dragon Ball Z power levels.
Yeah, and power levels are terrible. And
they're terrible for story, but there's something not even just about power levels. It's like it's rankings, and even more, I think, for my goblin brain, it's numbers. I love numbers and stuff as a way of displaying things, even though in life I don't really give credence to anything, but when it's a story I can accept that those numbers are an absolute truth.
I think
sometimes that comes to power levels or skills. Sometimes that is just like organizations. I'm such a sucker for like, oh, the number, you're dealing with the 5th level of you're dealing with CP5 in One Piece, but then you got to deal with CP1, but then there's the secret Black Ops CP0, and it's like, whoa, like I know that's simple, but like I'm just such a sucker for that.
My problem with power levels in Dragon Ball Z would be, if you want power levels to be good storytelling, I need to know what one power unit means.
They did that though. There was a farmer out on his farm,
who had a
And-
power level of 6 and
This
then
guy's
Raditz.
one Raditz.
They give me different people, but like, what does that actually mean?
Oh, it's meaningless. I don't like power levels in Dragon. I will actively
Yeah.
say I don't like power levels in Dragon
Which
Ball
is
Z. Dragon
why
Ball
they
Z
threw those out immediately.
Yeah, well, and it cripples the
determines-
story.
determines his power ranking in the same way. It's I did a whole. Well, did I ever actually do that panel? I don't think I actually ever did that panel about pro wrestling, where like anime's big for it, but Dragon Ball Z specifically, it's going, okay, here's this tough guy. He can beat these smaller guys, but he can't beat this bigger guy, the stronger guy, and that's how you get like a pecking order. That's how you get Piccolo, who is the job guy to the stars, where it's like, okay, Piccolo knows what he's doing, or I guess Vegeta. But when the big bad comes in, he's going to lose to show how powerful the big bad is. And that is pro wrestling storytelling, which is also a lot of anime storytelling when you build somebody else up to get beat to show how powerful somebody is.
I will
and in
say-
that case, that's not numbers, that's just a storytelling.
I wish
Thing.
Dragon Ball had never introduced power levels.
Yeah, agreed.
Because even
then
though
we would never have over 9,000, and I
True,
know that meme's
true.
been played out like to death, but like it's been long enough since anybody's referenced it that it's like I've got a soft spot for it.
But the thing is even though they got rid of them fairly early on, like in the Frieza saga, they sort of just tossed that out the window. People are still obsessed with it. You can go online and find, there's YouTube videos they do this. There's articles everywhere where they're like, okay, what actually is Goku Kaioken times 2 Super Saiyan God Blue? What is his actual power
What
level?
was Jackie Chun's power level?
Well-
what was Bacterian's power level? I want to know the dumb ones.
The early
that are
ones
silly.
that makes more sense
Well, they didn't have
because
power
you're like,
levels then. We didn't even have.
because you can sort of go, it's going to be 67 or 120, right? But like
I
when
love
you
just the human ones
when you
compared to
get-
where it goes later.
right when you get past the Frieza levels of stuff, it's like, okay,
They're
this
just
power
making big
level
numbers.
is 255 trillion 800, and it's like, what are you doing?
This doesn't mean anything storytelling wise.
I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan. I was raised on Dragon Ball. I learned how to draw like Akira Toriyama. I wrote my own little Dragon Ball fanfic comics. I have no idea what it means to be Kaioken times whatever. Because he learns the Kaioken off screen. The Kaioken times 2, is that like twice as hard on his body? What's happening to his body?
Yep.
How is the Kaioken does he just say Kaioken times whatever, or is he doing something?
He's like I always just took it that he was essentially like turning up his own internal burners. So it's like, I'm stronger, but this is more taxing to use. Whether that actually plays out in the story, I don't know.
Well,
I'm
why
gonna guess
doesn't-
not. But
why
like, I
doesn't
thought
he
that was the
just-
idea.
Why doesn't he just use that constantly? Because when Saiyans get more damage, they become more powerful.
Yeah, but then he would be knocked out. He wouldn't be able to use it all the
No,
time.
but
He
like
would
in
run
training,
out.
he should just use it constantly.
Yes, correct. You're poking a plot hole through Dragon Ball Z, a thing that people have been poking holes in.
Okay, Akira
for
Toriyama,
decades.
if you're listening, you need to retcon this.
Oh,
That
God.
man didn't even take part in the Spirit Bomb and
He doesn't even
freaking
remember
Boo in 5 minutes. He's not going to talk to us.
So, like,
He's even alive.
my thing is, if you're willing to give a series the benefit of the doubt, like if the series happens to scratch your particular itch like Dragon Ball did mine, you'll fill it in your head and just make honestly a better story than what Akira Toriyama winds up writing
That's what a
every
bridge
time.
was.
And it will but if you're not willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, that's just where you're going to shut it off. It's like, this is meaningless. And I can totally see why a whole generation of kids, I've watched this fight play out in the comment sections of many a thread of kids who are like, Naruto's better than Dragon Ball Z. And then people go nuts. But I could totally see why a kid thinks that, because I can imagine watching Dragon Ball Z as I watched it one episode at a time after football practice, hoping it was going to be a new episode and not a rerun.
Yeah.
That knowing that a lot of the episodes are just two guys pushing each other and like not gaining an inch.
I'll tell you what, though, I think the power scaling in Dragon Ball makes more sense than in Naruto.
I mean, I think they make about the same, especially if you...
It's all just. I like that now. I'm just on your side, Ben. Of like when it comes to power level numbers, I don't like numbers to capture something like that outside of like stats, which I guess what is a power level is. But like ranking is my true love.
You need to know if the rank means something to the character, it will mean something to us. But if the rank is confusing to the character, like in Akane Banashi, it'll be confusing and meaningless to us. So if your character really wants to get the Chunin rank, or he really wants to see the number go up, and the number goes up, you'll be happy for them.
Yeah.
But too often, it's just like, we're doing a video game thing. This is where everybody is.
Yep.
All right. Ben,
Sometimes it's lazy. Sometimes I'm in for it. Sometimes I'm not. There's my really clear.
Well, and I
definitive
agree with
statement.
that. We've come to a consensus.
We've come to a consensus. Dragon Ball Z power levels are stupid.
Yes.
That's what we can agree on. A piece has been found, Brad.
All right. Ben really, really wants to talk isekai. So,
It's the easiest genre to pick on.
well,
It does everything wrong.
I think, we alluded to this already. The whole point with isekai in the first place is you get to shortcut into your story. You don't have to explain everything that's going on because it's easy. Oh, you know about video game systems, RPGs. Oh, you know about Japanese stuff. Well, this character knows Japanese stuff, and they're going to introduce some stuff into this world. Well, guess what? Every single isekai world has nobility. And, they have an adventurers guild. And the adventurers guild, they get ranked from sometimes E, sometimes F, up to A and S rank. And sometimes there's SS or triple S. And it's like, okay, this is all easy because we do the same thing in every story. Mm-hmm. So we'll just bypass all of this, and now we can get to the actual story.
But every like skipped step is a missed opportunity for character growth.
That's not what you're here for, Ben. You're here for apparently.
So
you're already where you end. This is a power fantasy.
Or for
so
character
literally
development.
just getting.
So you
you're
want,
just eating dessert. There's no meal. There's no appetizer. There's no salad. There's not even a main course. You are just eating dessert.
So what you're saying is you want some character progression for your isekai protagonist who is thrust into this world as the most powerful person in this world immediately.
I like Faraway Paladin because I know what his power means to him. I know what he had to do. I know he attaches, when he uses his super powerful magic, he remembers his grandfather. When he uses his healing powers, he remembers his mother. When he uses his combat skills, he remembers his father.
Yeah, that we got to be there for. We got to see this growth. The only benefit he had was that he could remember. He was like fully conscious even when he was a baby because he was reborn into it. So that let him he got to use his more adult brain growing up and could pick up. But because we were there for that journey, it was meaningful.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for our Faraway Paladin episode.
I don't mind that he's all powerful as long as
He isn't even.
He's not.
Well,
Not even
yeah.
close.
He's,
He
like
has to
Faraway
struggle
Paladin
constantly.
is not a.
Yeah, it's not
is
a
an
typical.
isekai, but it is not the like stereotypical one I think we're ragging on in this video game style. But there is video gaminess to that where you go in the dungeon. He goes in the dungeon and he fights a bunch of skeletons, and then he fights a super skeleton, and it drops a cool spear, but he has to take it back to the mage to get it. Whatever the word is.
I think if you don't,
And like that's a video game thing. Exactly. I've done that in a video game.
if you don't do anything to develop your character, you just drop them in and they're already all powerful. That, it works for comedy a lot. And I think that's where most of the isekais,
It works for escapism.
I don't even know if it works for escapism.
You're talking
Ben.
to Professor Isekai Sensei Sama.
For me.
Ben,
There you go. There you
it
go.
works
Exactly.
for
There you go.
escapism.
But like with the manhwa ones, where Fiona Green is all powerful. I have no idea how many people are going to get that reference. I don't know how widespread these things are.
Well,
I don't
that
even
episode
get it.
didn't come out yet. So
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
But
that's the next one.
That
So
explains why even I don't know.
You'll hear more about it later, but she's an all-powerful mage. You could pretty much, there's limits on her power, but she's pretty much top tier.
But that has in most of the manhwa are like this. That just has the standard medieval aristocracy stuff.
yeah, and they took their shortcuts, but they built the drama around her friendships and interactions with other people.
Right. Yeah, there's no mage rankings.
Yeah.
They just go, holy crap, look what she can do. She's the most powerful.
What's
they
like
don't
Frieren
go,
is
oh,
Frieren
we're
has
going to
that.
give, yeah.
But
Well,
Frieren is one.
there is a test.
Here is a there is a test. That's what they're going to now. But at least in what's out in book form in America. But like that's one where it's here is a rote fantasy world, and then we're actually just going to kind of take time and explore it step by step instead of just 100% hand waving it. But it is very like here's this kingdom, and the demons are coming from like it's literally like there's so many times you see that we have to fight the Demon King, and the Demon King has their officers or whatever they are, and it's all it's very structured.
And I've never cared about.
And it's the most hand wavy of anything.
I could care less what Frieren's magic rank is,
Yeah,
and I think
100%.
Frieren could care less what Frieren's magic rank is, and
Yeah.
that's where I know what it means to Frieren. Absolutely nothing, and that's why it's going to be funny to watch her breeze through it and frustrate all the people to whom it means
you
quite a
guys
bit.
are in for such a treat.
I think is that the next book?
But it's also going to be
they're about
funny.
to get there last time. Sorry, I'm
The way they made it, the way they set it up is it's going to be Frieren versus her little student, and that's going to be interesting to watch.
I mean, Frieren isn't an isekai, but it's in an isekai-y world because
Yeah.
it's a very rote. I wish I had another word that was like this is besides just saying the very stereotypical rote fantasy world they all seemingly take
It's
place
just
in.
trope template fantasy.
But
That-
like
but
in a
that's
shorter form, like we could just say
Yeah.
isekai that captures that idea, like it captures ideas.
We've established this time and time again, but the best isekai are ones that they get you in. They sometimes use the same tropes and everything, but they move along and get into an interesting story that's beyond that. And I think, I just have to keep coming back to that. The when you do those adventure rankings, F to S, or when you do the aristocracy, it's a count and a marquis and a duke and the prince and the king and all that. What you're doing is you're just giving the reader a shortcut and saying, you don't need to worry about all this. You already understand how all these work, and we're going to move up.
They're banking on you coming in, which I feel like is a reasonable thing to bank on, that you already have emotional connection context to these ideas from other things you have consumed.
I
don't think that's I think there's something to that because it was like, well, why don't they just actually set it up in story to give you a reason? It's like, well, no, they know that you've done this dance before, so they're just going to go, you've done this dance, do the steps again, remember the steps. Now we're going in this direction.
Yeah.
Well,
and like,
why waste my time? Why waste my time as the writer and you as the reader to do something that you already know what it is to set up a thing that you already know?
I mean, you'd have so much longer setup for so many of these things if you had to like establish all of these different systems.
Well, but then they probably wouldn't all be the same. Like Kermit likes to bake. The ultimate shortcut to baking a cookie is to go buy a box of cookies. Like,
Well, now I want cookies.
why if you don't want to tell a story,
Because sometimes you want to eat. Like, I mean, I guess it's the thing is, what do you do with those cookies once you buy them? Like, you can. I guess I'm going to try to synthesize both what Brad was talking about and what you just said, Ben, to try to find a middle something or other. Because it's the idea. It's like if you take the time to make all the systems, you are baking the cookies, and that takes time and effort and gives you more connection to the cookies. But then you can, if I've baked cookies and then buy them.
you could buy the dough.
But
That's
it's
a
like,
shortcut.
what am I
Right.
doing
No,
with
so-
the cookies? Am I just eating them, or am I sharing them with people? Like, it's that I feel like that's the next step of what Brad's describing, where it's like you already know the process of baking cookies. Here's the bag of cookies. Now we're going to go use these to make something else, or we're going to go do something else with that.
I actually
idea.
think there's a little bit deeper here. So what you can do is you can say, okay, so your standard trashy isekai is you go to the store, you buy a box of cookies from Nabisco, right?
Yeah.
You shovel those in your mouth.
Not the chessmen.
You know what? I just wanted some cookies.
Chessmen, please.
I just needed that escape. I shoved those cookies in my mouth. Good job. Okay.
Good
So
job.
now I
cookie
want to
eater.
I want to challenge myself a little bit more. So now I'm going to go to a bakery and buy some cookies that are fresh baked there, that day or the day before. Oh, and I can taste, the brown sugar in these is more molassesy. And so you get a different level of that. Take it a step further. You go, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to buy a box mix. I'm going to bake these cookies myself. Okay, well, you had all your ingredients together, and so there you got your shortcut there. But you didn't have to worry about a whole lot of it. You just looked at the instructions, you followed those, and then you got something that you actually put some effort into. Go a step further, and I think the best isekai, because you are still having that shortcut, is you've bought a box mix of cookies, and you've added chopped up apricots and walnuts, and you put your own thing into it. So now that's a much more complete, satisfying thing.
Brad, I love this metaphor so
no,
much.
and this is where I was going, but I was thinking about it from the writing perspective. So I was thinking about it, if you're a writer who wants to make everything from scratch, even like you want to melt the chocolate into chips.
Yeah.
You're like a Tolkien constructing a Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Right.
If you just want, what do you as a writer/baker get out of the process? What are you trying to focus on? What's the story you want to tell? If you want to, I like everything Tolkien did, I want to play with that with my own characters. That's getting your box mix or your recipe.
You know, Tolkien, I'm pretty sure Tolkien used chocolate chips from the store, even though he made the rest of the stuff, because, you know, it's got kings and queens and stuff in it. Like, he still has his hierarchies in there.
He bought the chocolate chips from Beowulf.
Right.
But yeah,
I don't think that detracts. In the same way, like I said,
Tropes are tropes because they work.
right, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to buy a box of, or a sheet of Oreos or whatever it is, and I'm going to eat that whole thing because I enjoy them. Like, I know it's not good for me. I know I'm not, you know, stimulating my body in any way by doing this,
Or your
but
brain by baking them yourself.
I wanted my escape and I got it. And you know what?
Well, and it's like, what is the writer's mindset of the person who does the equivalent of buying the cookies? It's like, I just want him to wear a different shirt. I just want my OC in that exact same story.
Well, you know, I feel like some of it's that, and some of it I think Brad has said is that we're hand waving all this stuff that you already know to get to where I want to go, but we can't get there without this setup, and I'm not interested in this setup.
You know, you want to be different.
I'm going, here are the tropes you know, here are the basic building blocks. We need this, but I'm not interested in this part. But I need this to build the thing to tell the story that I want to tell. Whether that works out well or not, I don't know. I'm not Professor Isekai Sensei Sama, but that's my feeling on it. And what he is describing is that it's a lot of just, you've done this before to actually get where we want to go or tell the flavor of this version of the story that I want to tell.
That's the thing, though, is I can go to the store and I can stand in that cookie aisle and I can go, okay, there are 14 different flavors of Oreos. Okay, but there's some Hydrox over there. Deep cut. And guess what? Newman's Own makes sandwich cookies as well, and they have 4 different flavors. And so I can get a variety of things that are basically the exact same thing.
Leave a comment if you made it through this episode without getting a cookie.
I have cookies.
So I don't... Those things existing...
I don't mind that they exist.
It's there for a reason. Maybe not all of them. You know, maybe the off-brand, you know, the store brand of Oreos doesn't need to exist. But someone is consuming that and enjoying it, and good for them.
Oh, I don't mind that.
And
it
that person is
exists.
me.
To this day, I will talk about my love for the My Immortal Harry Potter fanfic where a goth girl goes to Hogwarts and has a weird polyamorous relationship with Draco and Harry.
That sounds like
just
she
talked
went
about
to,
this.
That sounds like
I
she
talk
went to
about
the
it all the
bakery
time.
and got some pre-made dough, and then just threw some weird stuff in it anyways. So some of it was already pre-baked and pre-prepped, but some
Why
of
does
it was
this
not.
cookie taste like weed?
Oh.
This
This metaphor keeps giving. I'm loving it.
I think isekais having those structures in place to have a shortcut allows the genre, or you know, the fantasy genre, to be more prolific. You wouldn't have as much choice in your fantasy stories if you didn't have those shortcuts that the authors could take, because not every author can be a Tolkien who writes a language before he writes a book.
Not everybody can sand down all the corners and make all this ornate furniture. Some people just want to jump to other things.
Yeah, sometimes you got to buy an IKEA flat pack.
I mean, certainly there would be less, but I don't know. I mean, for you, that would be the ultimate tragedy. But
yeah.
I only read a handful of them anyway.
You don't even
So
need,
far.
This man eats all the cookies, and you don't need to eat all the cookies, Ben. You could make your cookies. You don't even need to eat them in the first place.
See, I went to the store and I tried all the cookies, and then I was like, Ben, here, try these specific cookies. I think you'll like them.
You're the guy who can tell the difference between like Pepsi, Royal Crown, and Coca-Cola.
Don't even.
I mean, I feel like I could do that anyways. I don't think I need to be an expert on cookies to do that in this metaphor.
Royal Crown shouldn't exist.
Mr. Pibb.
Mr. Pibb's okay.
I just wanted to say
can
Mr.
exist.
Pibb because it's a soda name that I never see anywhere and it brings me joy. I don't want to be Mr. Pibb.
I want to be Dr. Pepper.
I do find it interesting because there's the whole thing about, kings and nobles and stuff. I would think that you could do an isekai that doesn't have that. Like, why do these worlds require nobility? A lot of times an isekai will have, I think the adventure ranking system makes sense, but then every single one also has kings and
queens and
nobility.
dragons and demon kings. Why
And
don't we
it's
go to Roman times? Why don't we go to Viking land? Why don't we go to Wild West town? Why don't we go to like the jungle? Like there's nothing about the basic concept of an isekai that means it has to go to a fantasy medieval realm that has magic or not. And yet that's seemingly the vast majority of them, that the few times it's not are like the ones where I'm like, tell me about those, Isekai Sensei Sama. I want to know about those.
It's almost like an author has to put their protagonist in a situation that is almost completely opposite to the one they came from.
But there's so many other settings to do that in, though.
I mean,
You have to establish that.
You could go to samurai times. I know they're tired of samurai times, but like that genuinely
I don't
be
know.
different at this point.
I think that's probably still too similar for a Japanese protagonist.
I think the answer to this question, in reality, is most of the RPGs that inspire the systems that are the shortcut are based on Dungeons and Dragons, which is a fantasy setting.
Yeah. And that's why my favorite NES RPG is Earthbound, and other people are cowards.
So is it just because
It's Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest.
classic
It's Dragon Quest.
fantasy
Yes.
stuff has nobility, a noble system in
Yes.
it, that's where that came from?
It's just Dragon Quest. They literally had to like change holidays around when Dragon Quest came out. It is an institution.
I think they associate it with, because you could keep the systems and throw out the nobility, but I do think they associate the systems with the nobility somewhat. Like,
Right.
because their concept of like priests.
Yeah, religion.
Is
We had
almost-
an off microphone talk about
Yeah.
this where it's like, isn't it weird that they have like priests and bishops, but it's like they don't really have any concept of like Christianity. It's just the trappings without anything else.
Yeah, like the D&D paladin
Yeah.
and cleric are like more almost pagan or
Do Japanese people even know D&D, or is it literally just from through things that D&D has inspired? Is D&D is Dungeons and Dragons a thing people play in Japan that aren't just Westerners?
So this bleeds into another episode topic we'll do in the future. But D&D first edition had a huge impact on Japan. And you can see that most obviously in orcs. Because
we can't go into this.
yeah, they're
You have a whole episode.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
But that's why the orcs look like pigs
Right.
in a lot of these.
Okay.
Stay tuned for that
That's
episode.
a future episode when we get really deep into all that fantasy stuff. So
But I think for most of the kids writing isekais, they're probably drawing from their Dragon Quests, their Final
or
Fantasies.
other isekai they've read.
Yeah.
Like this might be like this is the telephone game of culture through the ages and generations.
But I think the Final Fantasies, the Dragon Quests, they go back to D&D first edition.
yeah. Again, also why I like one of my favorite modern games, Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is a modern real-life RPG based on the ideas and trappings of Dragon Quest, but set in a modern city, and I love it.
I can't think of any off the top of my head that don't have some kind of medieval fantasy setting.
Reincarnated as the head of a Yakuza family.
I do read one about a girl who plays this Otomo game that's about Yakuza, like the sons of the head boss, and then gets caught up in real life with the Yakuza and like becomes a bride candidate for the 3 or 4 sons.
Yeah, there is a deeper question of why the Otome stuff gets like into the fantasy thing as well, because they're not using
I think this is an easy
They're
one
not even
though,
beholden
because
to it.
the traditional fantasy of young girls is, I want to be a princess, right?
But-
Which
and then
is
they get
I
married
don't
off
think
in a power thing. And
I don't
that's
think
Cinderella
that's
and all that.
real anymore.
I guess
No.
we could blame
Well,
that on
not
Disney.
That not in a way that we're aware of.
Right, but all of the stories very much cling to that, because like, oh, the villainess is going and she was engaged to the prince, and then the prince was like, we're not engaged anymore
It's all
because you bully
structures.
this
It's
girl,
struct-
right?
It's structures and paths for love and connection.
Yeah.
Because
And
they
you know
can't
what?
happen willy-nilly. They have to happen along the lines that have been put forth in the system that we have created.
I just can't get enough of it though. Like,
They're bedtime stories for you.
to
I don't have time as you're falling asleep to build a story. So there once was a prince who lived in a castle.
the stuff
Can we
that
recreate the opening shot of Princess Bride with like Brad all tucked in and Ben reading him a story?
the thing that I can't get enough of is like, oh, the villainess gets condemned and then she goes back in time and gets her revenge. Like, that's candy to me.
ご覧のスポンサーでお送りします。
We've all been there. One minute, you're a modern woman, obsessed with a romance novel. The next minute, you're inside the novel. You know how the novel is supposed to end. You know that you've been reincarnated as the villainess. And you know that your best chance for survival is to quietly fade into the background. But lately, things don't feel right. You catch the male lead looking at you all the time. At first, he looked away, embarrassed. Now, he holds your gaze as if trying to communicate a deep personal truth. You think it's probably nothing. Maybe there was something on your face. Maybe he was lost in thought. Maybe you remind him of the female lead. You can't wait to see how happy she'll make him. These thoughts could be a symptom of a serious medical condition affecting 1 in 5 women who have been reincarnated as a villainess. Dense female lead syndrome, or DFLS, occurs when the plot of a romance novel becomes lodged in the brain. If left untreated, this condition could result in a lack of situational awareness, audience frustration, and even unrequited love. Prescription Strength Wake Up Call works to dissolve the pre-existing plot and open the mind to the possibility that these are real people in an entirely different world. Let him love you, for Christ's sake! You're perfect together! Ask your doctor if Wake Up Call may be right for you.
So thanks to our sponsor this time. We really appreciate those sponsorships. So hopefully we can keep getting those.
Yeah.
Andrew, I hear some paper. Did we get another?
Yeah, we got
did.
another letter from Truxan in the mailbag.
All right. Would you do us the honors?
I'm curious how this one is going to go, because remember the last time, like, some of it was redacted before it
that's
got
right.
here, and that was really
Oh, and
kind of spooky.
I said, please don't send us confidential information. I really hope there's nothing redacted in this one.
I hope he listened. I don't know. Like I said, I don't read these really ahead of time. I just saw that from the last time, so we're kind of delving into this at the same time.
You don't see anything redacted there?
No, this one actually looks clean.
Okay, good.
Okay.
The organization hasn't got their hands on it.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
It's just,
They've-
I don't
they've
think
cleared all of
there's
it.
anything suspect in here. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know. We'll have to read it then. So, okay, let me get the voice on. I'm walking here. Sorry, that's my activation word. Dear that time I got reincarnated in the same world as an anime podcaster host, Brad, Ben, and Kermit. Here it is, my third letter, the magic number, some would say. I apologize for the redactions last letter. Seems that the organization has caught wind of both my letters and your podcast. But I'm sure nothing dangerous or life-threatening will come of it. I mean, we're just a Zaibatsu, hell-bent on killing lonely weirdos, usually through the sacred art form of vehicular manslaughter. Not sure why you would think a shadowy cabal like that would jump to extreme measures, dealing with things they don't like, but I digress. Today, I wanted to tell you about my early days on the job. I haven't always been a truckson, you know. I used to be on the body disposal unit. Just because their spirit goes on to another world doesn't mean their physical body does too. Someone has to clean up the cup ramen-filled guts and other nerd viscera from the streets and train tracks of Tokyo.
See, these are the shortcuts I don't want them to take anymore.
Shh, they're listening.
I mean, sometimes you just find somebody in the middle of their journey. I feel like that's where we found Truckson here. I had to work my way up through the ranks. They don't just give anyone a Truckson license to drive, or kill for that matter. You should have seen me at my driving exam, taking place in a death game style competition against the other would-be drivers, all vying for the coveted cushy seat of that hunk of steel we call the Reaper Mobile. I'm not particularly sure why we all needed to be put in such danger just to have the chance at one of the safest jobs in Japan, but I'm not the boss, and I don't decide the rules. Management really doesn't like it when I ask questions of them. Really, any curiosity in general is frowned upon. I'm vying for a promotion to that goddess that gives you your isekai powers position in a few years, and don't want to screw that up. Who knows? Maybe your favorite truck-son will be a kami-san after a while. A man can dream. Your favorite driver, Truck-san.
I need a picture of Goddess Trucksan.
Can we get some fan art of that, please?
We just need. Well, I don't even know if we want art of Truck-san drawn. I don't know if that would. That would
I mean,
something.
nobody knows what he actually looks like.
Sure, I guess they could make it up, and I'm sure wherever it gets put up, he'll be able to see it.
Well, so thanks, Truckson, for that. Thank you for not giving out any confidential information. We do not want to be visited by the organization.
I feel like it's 100% confirmed now that they're listening to the podcast and checking these letters.
Oh, certainly. But I will say it is interesting. I mean, as we know, I have some foreknowledge of this, but that even in an organization like that, we have to deal with hierarchies.
Yeah, I mean, we heard that he had to work his way up to the truck, and he's looking even higher than then.
And how many ranks are below Sensei Sama?
I'm not part of the organization.
Well, then we're
It's
all
a hierarchy that he doesn't know about.
Hey, I'm American. I gave myself that title.
I'm an American.
One's more American than Truckson.
Truckson's the most. Well, I don't know what he was. He got redacted.
Well, whatever
He could be.
was,
I don't know. I'm assuming.
he went to Japan, and so he has to deal with that. I will say,
We just know he's not Japanese, and he's in Japan now.
and I just got to be very clear about this. I think it's great that the organization has hierarchies and levels. That's a very good thing.
Yes, we can make exceptions for the organization.
All right, well, so today we've got a very special recommendation for everybody. This is a series we've been reading for quite a while now.
A couple years now, I think.
I want to say it's one of the first ones that we all started reading together.
Yes, when we got into reading what was going on in Jump.
Yeah. And that series is called Sakamoto Days. So Sakamoto Days follows an ex-assassin who was basically the best assassin in Japan.
He was the Ichiban,
And
I think.
he retired and opened up a convenience
He
store.
retired to marry the woman that he loved because she was like,
Right.
I don't want you doing this anymore.
So we catch up with him many years later. He has a, I think 8-year-old daughter or something like that, maybe younger. But, he's living a happy life with his daughter and his wife running this convenience store. And he has gained an immense amount of weight.
Not that much.
So as we go through the series, he gets into all kinds of different hijinks. It is ostensibly a comedy, but I would say that there's a lot of drama underlying it.
And moments of horror?
Yeah.
But not
Because
all the time.
what we find is that this assassin organization in Japan is gigantic and very powerful, and they sort of just do whatever, It is an organization. They take jobs and
There was a
deal with
schooling
things,
system and a hierarchy and ranking and certifications and all that stuff.
and the central protagonist is against all of that. It's actually Ben in disguise.
Everybody's looking at me.
Did you say protagonist? Did you mean antagonist?
Did I say?
You said protagonist.
Well, I think he's the protagonist.
Okay, first off, his ponytail's not stupid.
I gotta say,
Are you talking? Wait, you're saying Sakamoto is against that?
no,
Okay.
Slur.
Okay. Sorry,
That's
I
the
was
antagonist.
That's the
Except
antagonist.
I think he's the protagonist because I agree with him.
That's not how protagonists and antagonists work. Ben, back me up on this. You're a book guy. That's not how that works.
Hey,
That is
Bookman.
not. That is not how it works.
It's not about who you agree with or who is right or
I
wrong. It is who
think
is the main character
that
who, and then the
Voldemort
character who is acting.
is the protagonist
No,
because
the book doesn't
screw the
follow
wizarding
Voldemort.
world.
That's not how a
We don't need wizarding hierarchies.
He's still the antagonist.
The muggles suck. Wizards should rule.
The antagonist drives the plot.
The antagonist is the one working against the person the story is following. The story is following Harry Potter. Even if you disagree with his actions, he's the protagonist. How you feel about him doesn't factor into him being the protagonist or not. Jesus, Brad. I thought you were Professor Isekai Sensei Sama.
It's not an isekai.
Take
Clearly,
some-
it doesn't extend anywhere outside of
Take some of these free samples, a wake-up call we got.
get it together.
Why does this taste like strawberries?
Because it's the good shit.
Okay, so like back on Sakamoto days. So yeah, he's getting along. A lot of the comedy is derived from the fact that he cannot kill or really harm people entirely. So like,
He
you get a lot
hurts
of
people plenty.
Oh, he hurts people.
But
It's
his
very
wife
Batmanish
is like,
in
you
that
can't
way.
kill anyone else.
You can't kill anybody, but you
And
get
he
him
loves
like
her, so he
using like
listens.
simple everyday things to just wreck dudes, and there's a certain joy in that. It reminds me of one of the things that I love about The Punisher, where it's just one man just with his expertise clowning a bunch of other people. I mean, in The Punisher's case, he's murdering them, but in this case, it's like I can remember him like being on a bus and having to fight a bunch of dudes on a bus, or getting into other situations, and
A lot of the fun derives from the fact that very early on he picks up what we would potentially call a protege.
and also kind of more of the protagonist than him sometimes.
Yeah, to an extent. And this is a young kid who is also working as an assassin. I believe he initially is going after Sakamoto because there's a huge bounty on Sakamoto's head.
Yeah, because he left mysteriously, and they're like, "We can't have you around."
And this kid is like, I'm going to be the freaking best assassin because guess what? I'm a telepath. I can hear people's thoughts, so I can like predict people's movements and all this stuff. And he's very good, but he goes up against Sakamoto, who just absolutely schools him, and then is like, hey, I like you. Let's keep doing this. And he starts working at the convenience store.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stories that do the we fight and become friends, but just in its look and how it goes about things, it reminds me a lot of like original Dragon Ball.
Yeah,
It's both fighty and goofy.
It's very Toriyama in his comedy days. Yeah.
Yeah, but it feels fresh. It feels like a throwback, but it doesn't feel like it's aged.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, I don't
One
know
of
how
the
to put it
things
exactly.
that it does really well that I like, because I'm almost never really that big on the art of any one series. I'm much more about the story, and really bad art can take me out of it, but for the most part I don't care. But
Shove it in there.
the art in Sakamoto Days is really interesting because it's got a very sketched style, but it's still done really, really well.
It can be cartoony at times, and then it can be like uber detailed to like really make a point. It
Yeah,
can be
like the deer
it can
head
be
guy.
comical. I was going to talk about that. I am such a sucker for man in suit, but his head is just a deer head, but you learn that it is a mask. And I just, anytime that guy is around, I'm like, this guy rules, even though he's kind of the worst. But like, he's not the worst. There's much worse people than that. But it's like, it's very much at certain points where it's just, here are some really bad people. Here are situations. Again, it's actually very good. Remains very Punisher like that. Here are some really bad, scary people who are causing problems. And then Sakamoto and his team of friendos that he makes over time goes and takes them down, and sometimes they are just dealt with, sometimes they die via other means, sometimes they join the party, like the sniper guy with his bird
And the Chinese girl
who does drunken fist stuff.
and her bodyguard thing from the Chinese mafia that she was in, he's like
We haven't been paying
Native
attention to her as
American or
much. I don't
something.
remember. But it's very...
but he goes away pretty quick.
It kind of like... It grows, and it's interesting, and it has different... Like, it's interesting to go, like... There are 4 major serial killers just roving around the town that him and the other people from the organization have to find and take out. And then, like, okay, we need to go to get into the school. To do that, we need to take an entrance exam. You have to have a giant battle royale fight on a plane. And there's like a man who wants to make movies out of everything, who's like one of the like, and it is both wacky and violent. Like it's very all over the place, but it just works. There was a character recently who I hope to get to see again, who was like, oh, here's one of the guys that like got to skip the first part of the exam and brought in, and he's got like a winter hat on and he doesn't talk much, and then you're like, oh gosh, what's his deal? And then it's like, oh, he doesn't talk much because he has social anxiety. And they help him get through that, but from that he's like a really good listener, and it was like, wow, this was like kind of actually like done in a way that was kind of relatable, and it was just like reading his thoughts, like, oh yeah, you can read my, like, I don't know, it's funny, it's action packed, it is heartwarming at times, it is scary and like violent, unexpectedly violent at times, but in a way that it just is kind of one cohesive piece. It works really well.
I think it's very well executed. And so just to jump back real quick, I touched briefly on the antagonist, who's named Slur.
That's the organization, I believe. I think the organization is called Slur, is it not?
Maybe. I forget his name then. Anyway, so he was one of Sakamoto's classmates back in the day. And I think there was like 4 or 5 of them that were like close to each other. But basically, his deal is we shouldn't have an assassin organization, and we shouldn't have an assassination school that people then graduate into the organization with. I'm going to dismantle all of that. Assassins should be independent. And
free market.
You know what? I agree with him. I think that there are times and places for, you know, licenses and regulation and all that, but
not on my killers.
Not assassination.
What's the procedure when 2 people hire the guild to assassinate each other?
You kill both of them.
Who pays you?
They both do. You get paid up front.
I don't know. That seems like a liability.
Half. Well, there you go.
I think there'd be divided loyalties. I have a confession. I haven't read nearly as much of Sakamoto.
Yeah, you fell behind on this, but you've been busy with other things.
But I will say I think my wife has been pushing me to catch up on Sakamoto Days. She got into it.
Yeah, and it hasn't really like taken off fully yet, but it's been running for a couple years now, which means it's survived multiple Shonen Jump reapings, and I would say as somebody who's pretty much caught up to it, it's still doing really well. I believe the physical, was it Tokobans? Is that what they're called?
Tankobans. Tankoban.
I think like the second one just came out. Like I forget that some of these ones we've been reading for a while haven't been coming out in book form, which like that's a whole episode to try to figure out what determines that. Because like Spy Family has less chapters than Sakamoto Days, but like almost all of it is out in book form. And Sakamoto Days has way more chapters, and like only book 2 has come out now, which I'm hoping means once it starts coming out physically that more people will become aware of it. But I don't know. Like hopefully also from us, like go read it. We always talk up the Jump site. It's like $2 a month. You can read all of it plus everything else. If you're into buying physical manga, go out to your bookstore, go buy it there. Like it's a good time, and it only gets better as it finds more and more of its rhythm. But
yeah, and you know it does a really good job. It's nice and tight. Each chapter gives you something. You're generally not like, oh, that was just a filler chapter. Let's move on. Each time it comes out, and I think it's pretty consistently every week.
I think so. Yeah.
You get a piece
you will
that is
constantly
satisfying.
be given a bunch of weirdos, which as I think we've already discussed. The one thing anime and manga gives me is just a cavalcade of weirdos.
The lady who has a briefcase that is just like a giant circular saw that she swings around, she's pretty awesome.
Sorry, you go, Ben.
No, I was going to say I have a question. Maybe this is a question that would help the listeners because I am not as caught up as you guys. So the first few chapters were mostly comedy. You guys are making it sound like it got much more serious.
There's comedy.
Sometimes, yes, there's
constantly.
still comedy. But it bounces around.
And anytime Sakamoto's around, it's almost comedy all the time because even though he's like taking people out, he's this big fat guy
He's a big
bouncing
fat guy
around.
using like a pencil, or like
Again,
here's like a funny thing that I found.
He's
that
gained a
I'm using.
little weight. His ponytail's pretty cool. I think you guys are being a little too
Ben,
hard.
you're
on
not as fat as him. It's okay.
him. But I would like to.
He
own
gets
a
thin when he
convenience
gets really into it, and he has to burn off all of his steam power, and he looks like what he was like a couple decades ago. And then
So one of the things that I think slowed me down on this was, I was kind of getting into it because it was one of the first things. I think we were also big into One Punch Man at the time, and One Punch Man, for me, very quickly became the thing it was parodying.
Well, what? You guys didn't read the One Punch Man manga, though.
no, but we
watched-
saw
I mean,
season
the
2
anime.
where
Oh,
it
yeah,
became
right,
where
right,
we experienced it becoming
Yes.
the thing that's tearing. We talked
does,
about that.
Does that happen with Sakamoto
No.
days?
No, I would never say Sakamoto Days is fully a parody. Even
Yeah,
in
I
the
think
way
that's
that
the
One Punch
important
Man
thing.
is,
Because One
it's
Punch
a genuine
Man,
take on what it's
especially
doing.
yeah, especially early One Punch Man, wears the fact that it's a parody on its sleeve.
Maybe more like a Mob Psycho with the psychics kind of thing, where it's funny, but it's doing its own thing.
Sakamoto
too.
Days,
feel
I
like
would
that's-
say, is funnier than Mob.
But I feel like that's the closest. That's a closer thing to point it
Yeah,
to because
it
it's not
definitely
like
is.
full blown like a Chainsaw Man or something. Like it's not that far.
It definitely is. It does a balance where, so maybe comparing it on its comedy side to like Spy Family, it's not as much of a comedy as Spy Family.
Because it has moments of like again genuine horror when you have a bunch of serial
Right.
killers running on, and one of them is literally just I squish people down into cubes, and the like genuine disgust and horror that comes from that. And you're like, wow, I really want to see Sakamoto or somebody else beat this guy. This is really upsetting.
Right.
Okay.
But
And, like yeah, they balance. I don't
there are genuine moments of comedy that make you laugh out loud
or
as
just
you're reading.
strange like strangeness, absurdity, but yeah, also like
So would you say it's like an action comedy more than like Chainsaw Man? Chainsaw Man's funny, but like
There are
man,
moments.
that is
but
like
it's,
yeah.
it's definitely.
No.
I would call
a
it.
side
I would
thing.
call it an action comedy with sometimes
with horror elements
horror. I don't even know
or
like
gore.
horror.
Just
It's really hard to place it.
Gore, yeah.
Because I don't even know that there's enough comedy to have comedy in the genre.
when so
I think there are gags enough.
But there's enough
not
that
full on,
you
like Toriyama level.
you get those bits of comedy and you go, oh, that's
Like there's the gag that they always do where it's because the one guy can read minds. He will read Sakamoto's mind, and you'll see a panel where Sakamoto is just killing him. And you're like, oh my gosh, Sakamoto killed somebody or beat him up. And then it's just that he is reading Sakamoto's mind. And admittedly,
Yeah.
that's in like the very beginning when they're not on like the best bro terms. But
well, and I was gonna say one of the panels that sticks out in my mind as being especially well drawn is when he deflects a bullet with a gumball.
I love that. So, like stuff like that's great.
Like I got the impression that it was just mostly a gag manga when I read the first. I want to say like 3 chapters. The first 2 chapters are really long. Like
no,
all
because the
jump
thing
ones
is,
are.
Picks up
I
then.
can see how you would get that impression, but the action is real action. It's not gag action.
Well, I
Even
mean,
if
it's well
goofy
done,
things are
yeah.
happening in
Yeah.
it.
But it's a goofy, maybe writing a goofy choreography.
Yeah, there's definitely points of that, especially
Maybe like an old Jackie Chan movie has kind of goofy.
especially
choreography.
Sakamoto himself when he's doing stuff. But as we're getting into later chapters, you see less of him fighting directly, and you see, you follow the telekinetic kid, you see other people doing fights and stuff, and they're just much more violent and visceral.
It's the strangeness of we're on a plane and people are dying, and then when the plane breaks, we have to the one girl who seemed unconfident the whole time, even though she's on a thing to become an assassin, helps sew everybody's clothes together to make a parachute to get to the ground.
And then the guy is
And
like
it's like,
a
good
germaphobe,
job.
and he's like, I don't want to touch anybody, even though I'm murdering people.
Like it's a part, like it's very.
And then the girl who's like shows up and she's like, I'm the biggest Sakamoto,
Sakamoto
fan.
fan.
And look, he's skinny and hot and he's the best assassin ever. And then she meets him and she's like, oh, I'm not the biggest Sakamoto fan.
I've been a fake this
Again,
whole
that's really
time.
rude of her. I don't think that's really what we're
It's
supposed
okay,
to
Ben.
do.
You're okay, Ben. It's okay.
But
no.
so that's interesting because I mean, I remember sort of hearing this about it and thinking, oh, it's doing a One Punch Man.
No.
But my wife and you guys seem to be suggesting otherwise.
It's not a parody, even if it is funny at times. It is still like that's why it feels like a throwback. It's doing It's doing
Yeah.
things that I've seen before,
It's
but
like
it's just
how-
doing them in a
so
fresher way.
If it's a parody, it's a deep cover parody.
So like how Dragon Ball slowly went from like being like very humorous, very much a gag in that like first summoning of the dragon, then he gets into the Red Ribbon Army stuff. And it's,
Yeah, you could probably.
I would
you could
continue
like
to
it
say
into
that's
it.
very apt because it's like you do your first couple adventures, and then like once Slur shows up and that art, like you get that art style shift with him because he's like a very like detailed. I don't know enough about art, but he's like very like scratchy and not smooth lines and stuff like that.
Right.
Well, because
yeah.
what I remember is Sakamoto, to go back to the Toriyama thing, he has a lot of like round edges. Like
Yeah.
he's a literally a softer character, meaning he's
Ben,
more friendly.
He's
and
big and fat.
He's not his round corners.
He's a
symbolize
big, fat
his
man
softening both emotionally and
whose
professionally.
Belly is like a bowl full of jelly.
No, it's symbolism.
You know I'm fatter than you, right?
Jeez, just gotta put it out there on the airwaves.
Yeah, it's symbolism, but you don't have the ponytail.
He's got you there.
No, I will have to go home. I know I owe you guys many manga chapters at this point of many
Yeah.
things.
But just,
How far are you in Faraway Paladin?
No, none of that. None of we don't
How
need
far-
to keep. I
how
don't need
far
to,
away
we,
am
I?
I?
Don't- We don't need help. Freaking Ben's got enough that he needs to read on top of other things we keep telling him to read and things to read for the podcast. But all that said, like, I would genuinely suggest to read Sakamoto's Days. Is it like the most immaculate thing like Spy Family is? No, but like I've consistently had a good time with it for the years I've been reading it, and I'm always excited every week when
I
there's a new
would say
chapter.
it's in my top 15.
I was going to say that's actually pretty high for you because you read
You
thousands.
read a lot.
Where is it in your personal Shonen Jump ranking
Oh,
Okay, so on Shonen Jump, I read
of currently running Shonen Jump series?
One Punch Man, Mashal, which we haven't talked about yet. Okay, Sakamoto Days,
Chainsaw Man's back.
Spy Family.
Spy Family.
Spy Family's number one for everything forever. What else?
It's different flavor. Like this is the thing I always come back to with Spy Family, and when I
say
tangle
it's
with that and Chainsaw
3
Man
or
is like
4.
it's its own flavor, and I want to eat all the flavors.
Out of the 7 or 8 that I read on there,
Would you say it's like a must read on Shonen Jump?
yes,
I
yes.
would say it's a hidden
If-
gem. I don't think I've seen anybody but us talk about.
If you are going to get a subscription on Viz for any other series, also read Sakamoto Days.
yeah,
It's
it is
worth
100% worth your time.
I would say it's worth the $250 on its own.
Yep.
But maybe not for
Because
everybody.
there's like 70 some chapters now.
Yeah. I think that it can stand on its own. But there's so many good series on there at this point that you should definitely be reading like 4 or 5 at least.
Yeah, I know I am.
I'm keeping up with Akane and My Hero.
That
and
was
Spy
I missed a
Family.
con. I
Akane,
can't
I
believe
know.
I missed a con.
Yeah, I've got a few.
Anytime we talk about the series, we'll shill. They're not even paying us, but I will shill it to the end of days because it's such a good freaking.
I would have killed for
Akane-
this when I was a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't have
Akane's
to
my
keep
number
buying-
2.
I don't have to go to the bookstore to either read there. I don't have to keep buying them because
I
I
don't
don't
have to
have
go to
shelf
the-
space for all them. I can just read it digitally. I can give it some cash. Like
I don't have to go to the Suncoast Video
I don't have to pay
in my mall
$10 a month.
next
I don't
to
even
the
have to pay $5 a
Auntie
month.
Anne's pretzel.
Okay, so ranking real quick. Spy Family, Akane, Chainsaw Man, Sakamoto Days.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
that's some statement.
Okay.
And then Mashal.
I don't know if I could do that with rankings yet. I'd have to look
But
at
you're
what
not
everything-
reading like the My Hero or the Jujutsu Kaisen. Those are the ones.
And then
that are really-
Kubo-san, which you guys don't even know about.
I don't even know about Kubo-san.
Freaking cute.
Which one's that?
It's
What's it called?
it's a high schooler slice of life thing. It's
Oh, okay.
we won't go into it, but suffice to say they're cute little babies.
Cool. Okay. Read Sakamoto Days. It's great.
Yeah, definitely.
There's some cute little babies in there too.
I've been convinced.
Everybody can afford $250 a month, right?
I'll pay
For all
it.
that content?
I've told my friend I'd give him my login. And he said, if you do that, you'll never see me again. And he's like, I can't do it. And I'm like, okay, but you should still do it.
And you know what? You can read the first couple chapters for free.
And the latest ones
And the
for free.
latest
So if
ones
you
for
get
free.
on a series that has just started, you could just keep up with it for
or
free the whole
you
time.
could pay $250 for 1 month and catch up with all
Yeah,
these series.
That's what I was going to do
in a
when I
month.
was catching up
And
on One
then-
Piece, and then I just kept doing
Kids, take your parents' credit card. They'll think it's an ATM surcharge. They're
Yeah.
not even going to notice.
You know what? How about this? If you can't afford it, the first 5 people who contact me,
I will. Yes,
I will get
I will
you
mail
a subscription.
you.
I'll say 3 months. I'll do 3 months subscription for you. The first 5
easy.
people contact me. I need validation.
I will pay you for validation, but not fake clicks. I will pay you to read manga. That's the best that we like because you'll like it.
Well, that'll do it for episode 9. Hope everybody had a good time.
I leveled up my podcasting skill, Brad. I'm a better podcaster now.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
What episode was this again?
I think I can get my level 2 certification now.
Yeah.
The viewer watched me grow and change all on my own.
And it's meaningful because I'm talking about how meaningful it is.
Yeah, they know what it is because they saw me do it. They saw Rocky run up those stairs.
Well, like I said, you guys need to start studying for your level 2 certification or level 3 certification.
Does it is it a 1 rank situation, or is there
3,
like
2,
a 0 or an S above that?
So you guys are currently unranked.
Only
amateurs.
God may judge me.
We are merely Ronin at this moment. We are podcasters who serve no master.
We serve the
God,
the
doesn't that make
greater
it sound
good.
cooler though?
Bento the podcasting Ronin.
He does
Bam.
have those swords.
There you go. I knew you'd be super
Bam.
about that.
Well, anyway, thanks for listening. We'd like you to do all of the social media things, the subscribes and follows and comments and likes and all that fun stuff. You can do that on your podcast platform of choice, or you can visit our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. That has a lot of fun additional content out there. Ben does reviews of manga from time to time.
I think it's been a while since we've had a new Shonen Jump manga, so maybe I feel like we're due one.
You would be able to find show notes out there if we had any. If we ever do, that's where they'll be. You can also hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Isekai Sensei. Or you can send us an email, isekaisenseisama@gmail.com. We also have a YouTube channel. That time I got reincarnated as an anime podcaster. And we simul-release our podcast up there in stereo. And every once in a while we put other videos up there, but we haven't done that in a while. So tell us what you want to see. You can also check us out on Good Pods. I'm going to keep plugging this even though Ben hates it. But I think it's a good platform for actually connecting to your audience, even though not one single person has left us a comment yet.
The more desperate we sound, the less people are going to want to talk to us, Brad.
Well, okay, so next episode I'm going to be like, I don't want anybody to contact us. But for this episode, that cat's already out of the
Yeah,
bag.
do the
So
reverse
please
psychology.
validate me. Ben, you got some plugs.
Yeah, I do another podcast called Words About Books. If you love hearing my lofty ivory tower opinions on storytelling, we should be deep in the midst of Ready Player 2, which I hate by the time this comes out. So
excited to hear about it.
there'll be a lot of that. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me at Bembo Schwaggins. Bembo Swaggins. Bembo Schwaggins is my Twitch channel.
Schwiggity Schwaggins.
You can follow me on Twitter at Bembo Swaggins. You can also find me writing on the aforementioned blog.
Cool. Andrew, you have to at least plug your Twitter.
No, do I have to?
Yes.
You can find me on this very podcast every month. I have a good time doing it, even though I sound miserable right now. You can find me at my Twitter that I never look at Kermit D. Grog, because I like One Piece.
So you should definitely contact Andrew on Twitter and tell him that you want more episodes of Ramble Browsers.
Tell me how to find the One Piece. Ah, shoot. I lost. I need to watch the One Piece Kabuki show that happened. I can only find trailers. I literally can't find it anywhere online, and it's driving me insane. I know there's video of it, because they said they released it as a video. I want to watch the One Piece Kabuki. The trailers look incredible.
Well, once again, everyone who listened, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate those downloads. We'd like to see those numbers go up. And as I said, we want to hear from you. So, and I'll never say that again.
I only want to see the numbers go up if there's a deep
Don't
person.
talk to. You know, we gotta change our tactics, Brad. You gotta go. Don't talk to us. I refuse. I bet you can't comment. I don't even want you to comment, Babaka.
I bet you don't have the grapes to comment. Come on.
I bet we wouldn't even read your comment if you wrote it.
Yeah.
Well, that'll do it for us. So I want you all to remember, if you wake up in another world, don't piss off the nobles.
What's the cringiest thing we could call our fans? You know how a bunch of like groups have like a name for their fans?
I think we'd have to have some first.
That's a good point.
Hello to all our listeners in Germany. I know you're listening.
What's up, reincarnators?
No.
I said cringiest.
We could go deeper. There's more cringe to be had, I think.
Speaking of cringe, what's this episode's topic?
Yes, it's a mystery topic for me.
Ben does not know. This was hatched between Brad and I, and we said, Ben will have a lot to talk about this. Let's spring it on him. The organization. Great, humble organization. Thank you for your help.
They always use their omnipotence responsibly.
Oh, God, cut that. We don't want them to hear that. Cut that, Brad! This is going on too long. Brad, put us out of our misery. It's hot.
There's condensation on the bubble.